Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Happy to introduce you to our next speaker. It's Mushmi Banerjee from Okta. She's going to be talking about enhancing the user experience and security with FIDO and NIST. Please welcome her to the stage.
Thank you, Adrian. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm excited to be here to talk about enhancing user experience and security with FIDO and NIST guidelines. A little bit about me. I'm a senior software architect at Okta, specializing in identity. I have also dabbled into blockchain and AI technologies. I'm part of the Cloud Security Alliance Silicon Valley chapter, board member. A fun fact about me, I can read and write in 7 different languages. So with that, let's get started. Today's agenda, we'll do some introduction, delve into FIDO and NIST guidelines, talk about how to align them. Then we change tracks and talk about user experience and conclude. As more and more services move online, from shopping to banking to social media, the need for secure authentication of user identities become extremely important, especially with exponential increase in bad actors compromising passwords. We've been hearing that throughout this conference. So what do I mean by that? We all know that weak and compromised passwords leave users vulnerable, not only to identity theft, but to financial risk and cybersecurity risks. Attackers can trick users into revealing password in many ways. Passwords are easily phishable via email or via a fake login page. Not only that, malware these days have become so prevalent that they can record the keystrokes and thus capture your password even without you knowing. So where does FIDO and NIST come into the picture? Authentication standards like FIDO and NIST guidelines aim to address these vulnerabilities with fingerprinting, facial recognition, and other biometrics. So let's start by looking at FIDO. We are at a FIDO Alliance conference. FIDO standards is a set of authentication standards that provide a passwordless but a user-centric authentication experience. This user-centric is the key. Keep that in mind when we talk about user experience later half. Here's a look at the timeline for the emergence of FIDO standards. It started around 2009. 2018 is when the FIDO 2, which is widely adopted today, was published. It's been a long journey. In 2023, we've seen the rise of passkeys. Based on FIDO standards, passkeys are a replacement for passwords, and they provide easier and more secure logins to websites and apps across users' devices. Unlike passwords, passkeys are always strong and phishing resistant. And as we heard in the keynote, there are about 70 billion users already using passkeys. Some of the key points of this FIDO standards, they use public key cryptography and biometrics to provide a secure and convenient way to access online services. FIDO standards are open and vendor neutral, and have broad adoption across devices and platforms. Now that we've looked into FIDO, I would like to change track and talk to you about NIST guidelines. NIST provides guidelines for accessing and managing risks with different levels of assurance for authentication systems. It also classifies authentications into various types like password, PINs, cryptographic devices, USB tokens, hardware tokens, biometrics, OTPs, out of band, etc. In this talk, I'm going to focus on SP863. It's a 4-volume document suite for digital identity guideline. SP863A focuses on enrollment and identity proofing. In this talk, I'm going to focus on SP863B, which focuses on authentication and lifecycle management. There's another revision of SP863B, Rev 4, which is in the draft state, which talks a little bit about passkeys. There's SP863C, which talks about assertions and federations. So there's 4 volumes of digital identity guidelines provided by NIST. So what does SP863B gives us? It establishes the assurance level of authenticators based on the consequence of authentication errors and misuse of credentials. Authenticators meeting the requirements for high assurance levels provide more protection against phishing and online attacks. Let's start by discussing the different authentication assurance levels. AL1, authentication assurance level 1, that provides some confidence that the claimant controls the authenticators registered to the user. So what do I mean by that? In order to authenticate using AL1, the claimant has to prove that they are in control and possession of the authenticator and have to log in using a secure authentication protocol. With AL2, authentication assurance level 2, the claimant again has to prove that they are in control of the authenticators registered to the user. They have to prove login by 2 authentication factors. Again, same cryptographic and authentication controls apply. Then there's AL3, authentication assurance level 3. It provides very high confidence that the claimant is the one who it's claiming to be and is in control of the authenticators registered to the user that it's claiming to be. AL2 and AL3 are very similar to each other, except that AL3 has hard cryptographic requirements and verified impersonation resistance. Here's a quick look at level 1, level 2, and level 3. As I said earlier, the factors that we use today can be classified into 3 categories. One is knowledge-based factor, what you know, like a password or a PIN. Then there's position factor, what you have, like a biometric or a phone or a mobile device. And the third category is inference, who you are, usually captured by capturing the user's biometric data. With level 1, a single factor is sufficient. Doesn't matter whether it's a knowledge, position, or inference. With level 2, you need to have 2 different factors. You could have a token with a password or a PIN. With AL3, you need to have 2 factors, but of different categories. Usually, it's done by tamper-resistant devices with password or PIN, or biometric with liveness detection with PIN or smart card. So again, NIST assurance levels divides it into 3 categories. L1, some confidence in the user's identity. L2, high confidence in the user's identity. And finally, L3, very high confidence in the user's identity through a vetting process. Now that we have looked at FIDO and the NIST assurance levels, let's look at a table that shows various authentication types and their key characteristics. This might be familiar to most of you folks. The password and security question are the knowledge-based factors, which provide very low assurance. Then we have email, which is a position factor, which can be used for user verification. Then we have SMS and voice, which are both position factor, but they only validate that the user is present. Hence, are marked as very low assurance level. Then we have hardware tokens, like YubiKey, custom OTPs, RSA secure ID. They are considered hardware protected, and they also are device bound and validate that the user is present. Then we have soft tokens like Google Authenticator, Okta Verify OTP, Custom OTP. They are device bound, and they can only validate that the user is present, not user verification. NIST SP863B Ref 4 classifies passkeys, especially the multi-device passkey, as hardware token, multi-device passkeys as soft token, and device-bound passkeys as hardware token. Now let's focus on the last two, Okta FastPass and WebAuthn. They are considered very high-level authenticators. Let me repeat. Okta FastPass and WebAuthn are considered very high level of authentication because WebAuthn, if you combine that with biometric, whether it's Windows Hello, MacBook Touch ID, Android fingerprint, with passkey or YubiKey, then it provides device-bound, phishing-resistant, and the other properties like user presence or verification. So let me refocus on it. There's three categories of assurance level, assurance strength of the authenticators: low, medium, and high. Let's focus on the high ones, WebAuthn, FIDO passkeys. So why would somebody use a high authenticator, right? What are some of the benefits of it? High assurance authentication provides critical layer of protection against account takeovers, phishing, and other threats to user accounts and data. That's the reason why you'd want to focus on high assurance authenticators as opposed to the low assurance authenticators. So far, we have looked at FIDO, talked about NIST guidelines, assurance authenticator levels. So the next logical question is, how do we align them? How do you go about aligning FIDO with NIST levels? You start by categorizing different risk levels into low, medium, and high. That's the first thing. Then you align your risk level to the authentication assurance levels that we talked earlier, L1, L2, L3. Then you choose an authentication based on its strength that we discussed earlier, low, medium, or high strength. NIST guidelines, SP863B, it's a mouthful, yeah, maps the data provides some guidance as to how to align FIDO and NIST. For example, if the data is protected, is sensitive or valuable, a higher level of assurance is required. NIST guidelines also ask us to use risk-based authentication. With each authentication attempt, adjust the level of assurance accordingly. Let me give you an example. For instance, you're authenticating from a well-known device which is registered and accessing lower sensitive data. Low level of assurance is just fine. But if the user is coming from an unknown device or from an unknown location and trying to access sensitive data or application, a higher level of assurance would be required. It's often called continuous access evaluation. You evaluate with every authentication request the access and adjust the assurance level accordingly. So far, we have talked about the security posture, FIDO, NIST guidelines. How do we go about aligning them? I'd like to change track now and talk a little bit about user experience. Security and user experience go hand in hand. So let's start by looking at user experience. Here's a look at the Secure Sign-In Trends Report from Okta 2023. Some of the key insights from this authentication report shows that password authentication shows a median challenge time of 6 seconds. You would wonder why it is 6 seconds. Can somebody guess why it's 6 seconds? Most of us remember the passwords, or use autofill or password managers. Even then, if you look at the authenticators that combine position and inherence, such as biometric checks and other, like FastPass and WebAuthn, offer the fastest challenge time. This is a testimony to how the high-level authenticators can authenticate much more faster than your traditional authenticators. We talked about user experience during authentication. Let's delve into user experience during enrollment. Here, password takes a beating. Password enrollment takes 34 seconds. The reason being, the user has to first put in a password, re-verify the password, and if you're in a recovery flow, you're logged out of all your existing devices which had the previous secret. And guess what? Based on this insight on the enrollment, we found that the hardware-protected OTP FIDO2 WebAuthn boasts the shortest enrollment time of less than 20 seconds. Again, a good indicator that using a high-level authenticator can speed up your enrollment process. So we talked about authentication time, which is fastest for FIDO2 WebAuthn. Enrollment time, which is again fastest for FIDO2 WebAuthn. Finally, in addition to authentication and enrollment, it's important to consider recovery. There are still some challenges with recovery, but yeah, we're on the right track with it. Here's another insight that I'd like to share. This is again for Secure Sign-in Trends Report of October 2023. What's surprising is that even though the MFA adoption rates are increasing steadily, there's a 48-point difference. I repeat, 48-point difference between the highest and the lowest adoption. So adopting new authenticator systems involves challenges on both technical and the human side. What do I mean by that? We all agree that high-level authenticators like WebAuthn, FIDO2, passkeys provide much more security posture and user experience, but it comes with certain challenges and pitfalls, especially with legacy system, integration with legacy system. There are a lot of legacy systems which still use password and SMS. It'll take time for us to educate the users and the stakeholders about the benefits of this higher-level authentication enrollments. As we saw in the previous slide on MFA adoption rates, you will be surprised that in highly regulated industries like healthcare, government, finance, energy, lag behind the less regulated industries like professional services and social media communication in adoption of MFA. That's where we stand today. Let me repeat. The highly regulated industries lag behind the less regulated industries in MFA adoption. Then comes integration with your existing systems. There are challenges with integrating this new authenticators with your existing system, existing workflows, authentication workflows. Another challenge would be that you might have your own security stuff like network detection, software information and event management systems, SIEM systems, and you need to integrate all of the new authenticators into the same system. That means you need to be able to work across various teams, IT, operations, security, to get this high-level authenticators into your organization. So we talked about dependency on legacy system, dependency on your integration with your existing system. The third point that is, again, a challenge is compliance and regulations. Especially in the highly regulated industries like healthcare, you'll need to comply with various regulations like HIPAA, PCI DSS. You might even have to comply with standard guidelines like GDPR. Organizations also have compliance and restrictions towards their customers and partners, obligations towards their customers and partners that they need to meet. So even though there are benefits with a high-level assurance authenticator like FIDO Web Authent, passkeys, it comes with challenges and pitfalls. So let me conclude. So what did we learn today? FIDO standards, passkeys, NIST assurance levels, how do they align together? How do we improve the user experience? And how it actually, implementing this high-level authentication improves your user experience. Even with that, in conclusion, while high assurance authentication methods offer significant benefits, let me repeat, significant benefits in terms of security and user experience, integrating these methods into your existing system and processes can be challenging. It's a human and a technical problem. So you must carefully plan and coordinate your implementation so that you can improve your overall security posture. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. We don't have any question online submitted yet, but maybe we can open it to the floor if we have any questions. There you go.
So you were discussing the levels, AAA levels 1, 2, and 3, and I couldn't fully see the slide, I apologize, but it looked like if you had a phone and you had biometrics to unlock that phone, you moved from basically 2 to 3 or from medium to high. Am I not interpreting what that meant properly? Because we add the biometrics on top of something you are on top of something you own. Does that bootstrap us up to that next level? Did I read that correctly?
Yes, so position factor, mobile device is just a position factor. But when you combine a position factor with a biometric, you're actually proving two things. You're in control of something you have, which is your position factor or mobile device, but you're also including an inherence factor of who you are. The biometric is the inherence factor, and if you combine those two, you can do it applies as a user verification, not just a user present. Like if I get an OTP, somebody can spoof that OTP and enter it on my behalf, right? So it only verifies as a user present. When you combine it with a biometric, it qualifies as user verified. So that's the difference.
So we're almost out of time, but maybe one more question if you have. Then maybe closing thoughts?
Thank you so much for joining the talk today. I hope from this FIDO conference, we've been hearing a lot about passkeys. The 3 key takeaways is focus on the NIST guidelines, your assurance guidelines. Look at SP 863B, the new revision of it, draft revision 4 that's coming up, which gives some guidelines on passkeys as soft tokens for multi-device passkeys and hardware token for single device-bound passkeys. Focus on your user experience, because it's not just the security posture. Focus on your user experience as well. And finally, focus on your pitfall and challenges, and make sure you adopt the high level of user authenticators. Thank you so much.